Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for being here today. Just a few reminders. Please keep your microphones muted and also make sure that your video is turned off. If you have any questions, please make sure to type them in the chat box, and then we will make sure to review your questions at the end of the presentation. This session will be recorded, so this session will be available after in our YouTube channel for you to review it. So again, thanks everyone for being here. My name is Yandy Reynoso, and I'm one of the advisors in Education USA in Mexico City. And today here with us we have Kathleen, Associate Director of Admissions from the School of International and Public Affairs at Columbia University. Welcome. Today we will be talking about how to navigate the international affairs and public policy graduate programs in the United States. So before we start, we would like just to give a brief overview of what Education USA is. Some of you, this might be the first time that you join one of our online events, or maybe you are already familiar with what Education USA is. We just want you to know that we are a global network of advising centers from this U.S. State Department. We advise accurate and comprehensive information about the full range of opportunities that you have to study at U.S. higher education institutions. All of our services are free. Since we are a network program from the U.S. State Department. So we in Mexico, we have about 26 advising centers where we have different advisors who cover the different parts of Mexico. So if you are visiting us from maybe a different country or a different place from Mexico City, make sure if you want to get in contact with them, you can visit our website that you can see on screen, or write us an email so we can get you in contact with your Education USA advisor. Also, as I said, all of our services and all of our activities are free of charge. Since March, we have been conducting all of our activities online because of the COVID-19 situation. So we usually have online sessions like this one through Zoom, through Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, etc. So I will just suggest to make sure to follow us on social media so you can keep participating in our activities. We also have an advising center that is located at the Benjamin Franklin Library. But as I said, due to the pandemic right now, our advising center remains closed. We are only working remotely. So yeah, thanks everyone for being here. And now I will give the time to Kathleen. Thank you.
Thank you, Yandy, and thank you everyone at Education USA Mexico City for organizing this event. So as Yandy mentioned, my name is Kathleen Vitalhern. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. So today I'll be talking about a few things. I'll be covering the application process for the graduate programs in public policy and international affairs. I'll be talking about degree programs and the opportunities that are available as far as your career. I'll be talking about opportunities as well for international students. And then lastly, I'll conclude with some information about Columbia University, why SIPA, and what makes our school unique and the advantages that our students have. Okay, so I'll get started. I'm gonna turn off my video for the presentation portion, and then I'll come right back on at the end for the Q&A. So let's get started with our presentation. Okay, so as far as the application process, regardless of where you are interested in applying, you'll understand that each school will require a standard application, which is typically conducted online. In addition to the online application, you'll also have to see which standardized tests are required. They'll vary for each program and for each school, so you should make sure you review each school for what they accept. For example, at SIPA, we accept both the GMAT and the GRE, and we don't have any minimum score requirements. This is a question that we often get from applicants is, what is the average or what is the minimum? We don't have a minimum score, but you might want to check with the institution that you're interested in to see if there is a minimum score and how you can best reach that threshold. Now, in addition to the standardized tests, we'll also have the English proficiency exams. So if you earned your undergraduate degree in Mexico or another country in which English is not the official language, you'll be required to submit either the IELTS or the TOEFL. If you're interested in SIPA, our minimum score for the IELTS is 7, and our minimum for TOEFL is 100. Again, you should verify with each school that you're interested in regarding their minimum score requirements. Let's say you're interested in applying for a dual degree program. You may also have to take another test. For example, if you want to combine a degree with public policy and law, you'll have to take the LSAT as well. So another caveat that you can be aware of is that for applicants who are applying to either the spring or fall 2021 class, a lot of schools, including Colombia SIPA, are offering GRE and GMAT waivers. This is due to the impact of COVID-19, and it's a courtesy that we extend for applicants who cannot prepare for the test or cannot get to a testing center. So you should definitely check with the institution that you're interested in to see if they've made any changes to their policies regarding the fall 2021 class. So you'll also need to submit transcripts from each and every post-secondary institution that you've attended. For the application purpose, most likely you're able to upload an unofficial copy, and this can be something that you received in person and then you just scanned it online to upload to your application. If you are admitted to that school, you will have to get the official copy and send it over. Also, if your transcript is not originally in English, then you have to get it translated. And you don't have to go to a particular service. You can go to any notarized agency to get your transcript translated to English. One of the most notable organizations is World Education Services. They offer this service for you all, but you don't have to go there. You can actually choose whichever one is more convenient for you. We also have letters of recommendation for the graduate application process. Most schools will require either 2 or 3, and they can either be professional or academic, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The personal statement is a really important part of the application. This is the real estate you have in demonstrating anything about yourself and your goals that were not fully expanded on in other parts of your application. So you should definitely take the most time in preparing your personal statement and crafting it to make sure that it aligns with your professional goals and your career objectives. Next, you have either the resume or the CV to upload. Most schools don't have a preference. Students will have a resume if they have more professional experiences, or a CV if they have more academic experiences. But you should just remember that it's admission into an academic program, so there is no particular page limit or a specific template that you must have. Now, some schools will also have a series of essay questions, and they're most likely going to be randomized. So you can definitely feel free to visit the website and see if they have any prior prompts to the essay questions that they used in previous cycles, so you can see how you can prepare for that. And if you have a discrepancy in your application, your school will also allow you to include an optional essay. And the optional essay is usually where you would describe, let's say you didn't do too well in your undergraduate program, or maybe you have a gap in your resume as far as your professional experience. So you can definitely ask them how you can separate this explanation from your other parts of your application. Lastly, we have application fees and deadlines. So application fees to graduate programs can be anywhere from 80 to 100 US dollars, but most people can actually qualify for a waiver. I think you just have to be a little bit more proactive in checking with the school before you submit your application. And as far as deadlines, you should definitely make sure that you're aware of them ahead of time, because a lot of schools have strict deadlines and they will not accept an application if it's late. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's get into the application do's and don'ts. So you do want to begin early. You should give yourself enough time to prepare, and this is really to allow you to prepare your best application. You know, you don't want to cut yourself short by not giving yourself enough time to prepare. For example, not allowing you to have enough time to ask your reference for a recommendation letter, or to really think thoroughly about your personal statement, or even time to prepare for your exam if you choose to submit the GRE. So you should really think about this stuff pretty early. If you are interested in the fall term, for example, just know that most deadlines fall between January and February. So now is the perfect time to start thinking about it. And that goes with our next do, adhere to deadlines. As I mentioned earlier, many deadlines are strict, so you don't want to rush yourself in preparing for your application, and you don't want to lose out on an opportunity just because you weren't able to submit it on time. You should do your research on individual schools and the faculty. Now, I know it can seem a little overwhelming, and there are usually a lot of schools that may seem similar. However, you should make sure that you're choosing the right school and the right fit for you. So some of the details that may be important for you to consider are the location, the cost of attendance, the size, the academic programs they offer, and the professional development and career opportunities. You can start by looking at the website and reviewing the information that they have. Next, you want to customize your personal statement. You should remember to be clear in presenting your goals, your interests, your passion. You should let your voice be reflected through the essay. In my experience, whenever I talk to applicants, I tell them they should refrain from quoting from anyone. You know, it's great to have heroes like as public figures, but we really don't want to hear how much you admire this person. We want to understand who you are and what makes you a unique candidate. So you should feel free to reflect on your personal experiences that are both academic and professional. And last, we know that you are applying to multiple schools. It's not unorthodox to apply to multiple graduate schools. So in customizing your personal statement, we want to hear how you think SIPA can actually help you achieve your objectives. So be sure you're doing that for each and every school that you're applying to. It may seem time consuming, but it can really make a difference in your personal statement. And for the last do, we definitely would encourage you to connect with the admissions team and current students. So, you know, we're all in this virtual world now. Everything is being held online. So this is one of the easiest ways that you can connect with a school. Many of them are conducting virtual programs, including information sessions, and they may even have a panel in which they're highlighting their current students or even alumni. I think this is a great way to learn more about the program that you're interested in. So you should definitely check out their recruitment schedule to see what kind of programs they have lined up for the fall. And last, you can actually ask them if you can chat with a student ambassador. I know a lot of people say that talking to the students usually makes the most of a difference for them when they're choosing which school is an appropriate fit for them. So getting into the don'ts, don't ask for a personal reference. So we understand that your family and friends, they think that you're wonderful, which is great, but this is a space for us to understand your academic preparedness. So we really want to look for people who know you in either the academic or professional context. So a good rule of thumb is to select individuals who can attest to your ability to perform well in a graduate program. If you have more work experience, if you've been out of school for a few years, it is expected that you'll have more professional references, which is fine. And if you're coming straight from undergrad, then of course we understand that you'll have more academic references. As long as you have people who can actually talk about the skills that you have, then they will be a strong fit for you as your reference. You don't want to focus on one application material. Many times our application review process is holistic. So instead of focusing on one part like your GRE or your transcript, you should focus on preparing your application as a whole. How can you strengthen each element? So it's not going to be likely that people will be denied for only one aspect of their application. So if you think of it in that way, then you can increase your chances of getting a more favorable decision. You don't want to leave out relevant information. I know a lot of people find that sometimes they don't think that their experiences are quite relevant. For example, if they did volunteer work, they discount it because they feel as though it's not real work because it wasn't paid. But this actually shows that you have passion and you're committed to an interest, because even when you don't have that financial incentive, you're still doing the work. It shows that you're committed and you have the time allocated for this. So please don't leave out any information that the admissions committee can find valuable and useful. Don't submit extra materials. This is not something that I don't see too much right now because we're all working from home, so we can't really see if people are sending materials to our office, but it's usually not something that's going to help you anyway. We don't really need any extra materials. Usually the application itself is good enough for us to tell if you're going to be a strong applicant or not. And lastly, don't forget to proofread your materials. So obviously you're working on your documents for weeks and weeks at a time. So it's definitely easy to miss a mistake if you're looking at it for hours and hours at end. So I would just recommend that you ask a friend or maybe one of your references to proofread it to make sure that there are no spelling or grammatical errors. Next slide, please. Okay, so when it comes to a career in public administration, public policy, or international affairs, there are definitely important things that you should note. And as you explore your options for graduate programs, you definitely want to determine where you ultimately want to begin your professional journey. So this is why location is something that I think is important to note. So some schools have a really great record for placing students in particular cities. For example, since we're located in New York, we have a very large alumni base in New York City. So that is obviously, something that our students have an advantage to. So if you know in your heart that you want to have your career in a particular place, then one of the things that you should consider is, is the school that I'm interested in, do they have any network or connections that I can make in that city so I can begin my professional journey? And speaking of professional journey, it all begins with your professional development. So this can include anything from career advising, coursework, webinars, maybe on how to approach the internship and the full-time job search. So usually there'll be an office, on campus. Maybe it's called the Office of Career Services, similar to ours. And they're usually going to be there to help you in navigating this employment atmosphere as soon as you get to your school, because you will be looking for an internship, and that's usually done your first semester. We have networking and leadership opportunities in this field, which is super important. So some of the questions you want to ask yourself when you're looking at schools and determining where you want to end up, you should ask yourself, what organizations typically visit the campus? What student organizations are available for me to build upon my leadership skills? So these are all going to be important when it comes time for you to look for your internship and look for your job post your graduate program. Next, you also want to see what are the leading industries for this degree. For example, we have on this slide a snapshot from our Office of Career Services, and it just shows you where our students who ended up, who completed one of our master's programs and how they ended up. as far as their starting salaries and what sectors they go into. So these are all relevant information that you should definitely take in consideration when you're choosing your graduate program. And lastly, we have alumni connections. So as you start your graduate school search, you should try connecting with alumni in your home city. For example, SIPA offers coffee chats all across the world, and many alumni will be happy to talk to prospective students about the application process, student life, and their professional journey. So if you have a school in particular that you're thinking of, you can definitely ask them if they have any alumni in your hometown, whether it's in Mexico City or somewhere else in Mexico, and more than likely they will have alumni there that they can connect you with. Next slide, please. So whether you pursue the MIA, Master of International Affairs, the MPP, Master of Public Policy, or the MPA, Master in Public Administration, you'll most likely complete the coursework that provides you with the foundation to work in either private, public, or nonprofit sectors. So on this slide, you see a few examples of the institutions where our alumni has been placed. Private sectors can include organizations including consulting firms, banking and financial institutions, and other business-like firms. For the public sector, this can include the US government, foreign governments, and specific ministries. The nonprofit sector can include international development, various associations, and different foundations. And we also have the multilateral sector, which includes the United Nations, World Bank, European Commission, just to name a few. So I also get many questions regarding the difference between the MPA and the MPP. So before I get into the difference, I like to focus on the similarities. Well, they both value developing leadership skills. They have a focus on blending theory and practice, and they focus also on language and cultural competency. At SIPA, I'll talk about the MPA because we do not offer the MPP. It is not accredited by New York State. So as far as the difference, I find that the largest difference is that the MPP will allow you to focus on research and analytical strategies, while the MPA program helps you focus on management and implementation of policymaking. Regardless if you earn your MPP or your MPA, I know a lot of alumni have mentioned that at the end, it really doesn't make too much of a difference as far as the opportunities that are available to you. You should just really focus on having a strong education and building a strong network. Next slide, please. So I know a lot of questions are also related to opportunities that are related to international students, which I'm happy to discuss. So first and foremost, I'd like to talk about fellowships. I think it's really encouraged to begin the funding search early. We would definitely recommend being proactive and not waiting until you receive an admission decision. I know there are many organizations that welcome applicants all over the world, including nonprofit organizations and different government entities that may exist in your own country that will offer scholarship to study in the US. And a lot of schools will also include in their admissions process a fellowship. So for example, at SIPA, we offer scholarship and assistantship awards, and it's built within our application process. All you have to do is answer yes on our admissions application, would you like to be considered for fellowship? So we of course have a deadline that you would have to submit your application by, and it's based off of both academic merit, your professional credentials, and your financial need. Our scholarships range from anywhere from $10,000 per year up to full tuition, and most of our awards are for 2 years. So I would definitely recommend that you look at each school that you're interested in to see what their fellowship structure is like and how you can apply by those deadlines. Next, well, there's internship opportunities. So for most public policy programs, there will be an internship component, which I believe is probably one of the most integral part of the student experience. As I mentioned before, MPP and or MPA programs really have a focus on blending theory and practice. And so the internship is the opportunity you get to have that practical education. For internships, you can actually have a position anywhere in the world. And at SIPA, most of our students complete it during the summer between their first and second year. And if you apply early enough, you can actually receive a stipend to cover room and board if that internship doesn't allow funding for that. And I think it's great just because it's an opportunity for you to gain practical experience as an international student in a country other than if you are other than the country that you're completing your graduate program in. Next, there are dual degree programs that you can also consider. They usually will have a dual degree program on that home campus, or maybe it'll be around the world. So for example, at SIPA, we allow students to enroll in other graduate and professional schools at Colombia, for example, the business school or the law school. So we actually offer a dual degree program between SIPA and Columbia Business School or Columbia Law School. We are also part of the Global Public Policy Network, which comprises of different schools around the world, from England, Brazil, France. So at the end of this dual degree program, you can actually earn 2 degrees. So I just think this is another great opportunity for students to be able to diversify their academic experience by not only studying in one country, but 2. And through the combined dual degree program, you'll actually be able to complete those 2 degrees in less time if you were to pursue them separately. So if you have a very interdisciplinary approach and interest, then I would definitely consider looking at schools that offer dual degree programs. There's also the Capstone Project, which is a very unique experience that many public policy programs offer. Here at Columbia, we have the project for the students in the last year, and it's during the span of an entire semester. So they get to work with the actual client, and the client can be from the private, public, or nonprofit sectors. There'll be 6 to 8 students in a particular team, and you'll be given a budget. And at the end of the semester, you'll have to have a producible report as far as what you learned. So I think this is another great opportunity for students to refine their skills and to gain knowledge of a particular area that they may not have been familiar with before, so that if they have an interest in a particular geographical area, you can see if there's capstone projects available for there as well. And lastly, you should definitely consider networking. I can't mention this enough, but this is going to be extremely important in this field, particularly. At SIPA, our connections are quite impressive. We have a network of over 20,000 active alumni leaders in over 160 countries, including Mexico. And in general, we have the Columbia University alumni network, which is over 300,000. So you have both the SIPA alumni network, and then you have Columbia alumni network. If you're interested in a particular graduate program, I would definitely recommend reaching out to the admissions team and see, what opportunities there are for you to connect with alumni who are in your hometown. I mentioned this earlier, but I just want to reiterate that it's super important to start the conversation now, and it may be more accessible for you to talk to someone who is within close proximity. Next slide. So as far as Columbia University, we have quite a few advantages for our students. One being that we are located in New York City. If you've ever visited New York, you can tell how magical it is. I'm a little biased because I'm originally from New York, but to be honest with you, we really do have the privilege of having great organizations within close proximity. This would include the United Nations, various Fortune 500 companies, local and national NGOs, just to name a few. But Overall, our city really does attract leaders from all around the world, which can include leaders of countries, ambassadors, humanitarian workers. They often travel to SIPA and they provide talks, so our students have access to these high-profile leaders. And we actually also have an event called the World Leaders Forum at Colombia, and they bring in the presidents and the prime ministers of countries from all over. So that's just a testament to how strong, our city is as far as being able to put you in contact with so many impressive people. As far as our curriculum, we have a core curriculum, but it is quite flexible. But in general, our students will all receive the same foundation in politics, policy, quantitative analysis, economics, and management. We offer 450 classes a year. However, you're able to pick from over 1,000 if you include the classes that are available to you from the 9 graduate schools within Colombia, as I mentioned earlier, the law school, business school, school of public health, school of social work. So we have a lot of different options for our students to choose from. I mentioned earlier also that we have a strong alumni network, over 20,000 in over 160 countries. Our current student population is 1,300 students, and they represent 114 countries. So it really is a very diverse place to be. As far as our student life, at SIPA, we're really looking for people with a desire to make a difference in the global community. So you'll find that everyone here is very interested in learning from one another. There are over 35 student organizations, and they have different interests as far as cultural, social, and educational areas. We have many different external events across the school. Some of them can be a lecture series where we have distinguished guests, or maybe a networking opportunity with outside organizations. And lastly, we really have a very strong professional development program. Our Office of Career Services provides our students with tools to really successfully navigate their professional development. As far as, from day one, they'll start off with looking at their resume and their cover letter and how you can best improve that, and then also teach you negotiation skills for when you decide to, take a job offer. So it's really a very holistic process, and our students have lifelong access to this service, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, Office of Career Services is really a comprehensive service for our students, and they host networking opportunities all around the year. And I mentioned earlier that they have lifelong access to the SIPA Link job board. So imagine if you graduated from Colombia and then 5 years later you decide, you want to change your career, you want to pivot, you can actually return to Colombia and you can still meet with the advisors, and they'll still give you access to the network online that only the job opportunities are available to the Colombia community, that it's exclusively targeted to them. So I think that's a great, great opportunity. There's also other opportunities to be involved, for example, career conferences. A lot of our conferences were in person, of course, but now we've been able to migrate them to a virtual format, but it's still happening. The career advising usually takes place in a course called Professional Development, which all of our students are required to enroll in during the first semester. So we really want to get you started from day one. And lastly, we have employer information sessions, which I think is pretty standard, and you should definitely see how, each school that you're interested in, how the employers usually communicate with your school. Who are the organizations that are coming to your campus? Where are your alumni? Where do they end up? So I think this is something that you should definitely take in consideration when you're looking at potential graduate schools. Next slide. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. Thank you all for those of you who recently joined. I think we are leaving the remaining time for questions.
Yes, Kathleen, thank you. Thank you very much. We encourage everyone to send your questions through the chat to Q&A. I want to ask you, Kathleen, if you have received any questions through your chat, or my colleague Jen D, if they have received any, if you have received any questions.
I don't have any questions in my chat as of yet.
Okay, we have here one. How do public policy and public administration programs differ?
That's a great question. I did touch upon this a little bit earlier. So public policy and public administration, they're very, very similar. And there's just a few differences. I would say probably only one difference in my research and in my experience. Public policy is usually more research oriented. It's for people who are interested in looking at the analytical measures of why a policy has been implemented and what is the underpinnings of how policy is created. Public administration usually focuses on the actual implementation and management of policies. So in a nutshell, I wouldn't get too crazy about the semantics, because I've seen people with either degrees end up in almost the same position. I think it's really about how you position yourself in the job market, how you leverage your network, and how you leverage your education in general, because at the end of the day, it's still a very strong education, a foundation in public policy, public administration. So there's very few differences, and I think at the end of the day, you should definitely focus on going to the graduate program. Whether they offer the MPP or the MPA, you should focus on the graduate program and what opportunities are available to you after you graduate.
Perfect, thank you, Kathleen. We have another question. The question is regarding the current situation during this time and due to this situation around the world. Is the GRE still a requirement in Colombia, SIPA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I also mentioned that the GRE and the GMAT, we're offering a waiver for anyone who wants to waive out of the test for fall 21. You just have to submit your form and then that's automatically approved. And I know a lot of schools have been doing this policy as well. I will say, however, that the important thing that you should note is, because we don't have, if you decide to submit your application without a GRE or GMAT, you'll understand that we'll have less information to evaluate you on as a candidate. So I mentioned earlier that we have fellowships that we consider our applicants for, and it's both on merit and need, but the merit is going to be, you know, something that we determine from your test scores, your academic transcript, anything that has some type of academic weight to it. That's what we'll use to consider you for fellowship and of course for admission. So you should definitely take a very strong, you know, look into how will your application be impacted if you did not submit the GRE.
Perfect. Another question. Do you offer any scholarships for international students or specifically for Mexican students? We are getting this question from the Mexican student, but in general, yeah, for the scholarships for international students as well as for Mexicans, and how is the offer?
Yeah, so I mentioned we have the fellowship that is open to everyone, domestic and international. So that's going to be, if you submit your application by the deadline, that's going to be automatically available to you no matter where you're coming from. And the average award is about $10,000 per year up to full tuition. and it'll be based off of a number of factors, including, I mentioned, your financial aid and your merit. So as far as very particular scholarships or fellowships for the Mexican student population, we do not have one that I'm aware of, but this is not to say that there aren't organizations that are funding students from Mexico. So I would definitely do your research, because we will honor any external organization funding that you may be able to find. And if you end up applying to SIPA and getting admitted, then of course it will gladly collaborate with this external organization.
Super. We have another question, Kathleen. How competitive is the PhD in Sustainable Development program?
Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have that information. We do not process admissions for the PhD program. It's really handled through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences at Colombia. The connection that you see on our website as far as SIPA is that we just offer a few of our courses that our PhD students are able to take. But the PhD admissions is completely handled by the other graduate school.
Perfect. In this case, Kathleen, can they send a message and all questions or further questions to the email shown at the screen?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. If you have any more questions at the end of today, maybe if you think about something later on, please feel free to email us on using our admissions email, sipa_admission@columbia.edu. We try to get to our emails relatively quickly. We all are working from home, so you should expect a turnaround time of about 24 to 48 hours.
Perfect. Kathleen, we have another question. It says like that: I'm interested in the MPP program, but I don't have a strong quantitative background. Would it be a problem for the MPP program in SIPA?
So I get this question a lot as well. Having a quantitative background is going to be very important, whether you apply to SIPA or any other MPP program. If you do not have any familiarity with, quant-based courses, for example, economics, statistics, it's going to be very difficult for you to manage the courses. So if there is an opportunity, I would say try to take a course online at any accredited institution before you submit your application. You can take it at your local institution, and you can submit your transcript during the time of your application, but it's going to really show that you have that passion, because these programs do require that background. They will teach you. You'll have intro to microeconomics, intro to macroeconomics, but it is more on a graduate level. So we want to make sure that you are academically prepared. So if you do not have a background, then it's going to be very difficult to admit you on the understanding that you'll be able to do well in the program.
Perfect. Another question: is a master's thesis required?
I'm sorry?
Is a master's thesis required?
We don't have a thesis component on our programs, so I know some schools do, but this is really a professional program, so we don't really have that research focus. If you are interested in doing research, for example, I know a lot of students who decide to take on a research assistant position or even a teaching assistant position during their second year. That's totally up to you. You can definitely arrange that with the faculty member that you're interested in, but you can just go through the program by completing your courses, completing the internship and the capstone project, and you'll be fine.
Perfect. Another one: what are some public policy careers and jobs?
That's a great question. There's so many, I can't possibly think of all of them. You can think of any organization really, and it really depends on where your interests lie. You can work in the private sector, so you can work at banks, you can work in privately owned organizations, you can work in the public sector if you want to work for government organizations, either in the US or abroad. There's the United Nations, there's the World Bank. I mean, the opportunities are endless. I think it really, you need to focus on what you want to do, where you want to end up professionally, and then you can see which program and which concentration within the program will really lead you to that direction.
Super. Another one, Kathleen. The question is, so what's the first step if I want to apply for a scholarship?
The first step is to first identify the scholarships that are available. Many of them will have a deadline that will coincide with the admissions application. So it's best if you prepare your application for admission into the graduate program as well as the application for the fellowships. You can prepare them all at the same time. So there's going to be fellowships that are available from the particular school, and then there's going to be scholarships that are available by different organizations. You can go on appsia.org. I can type it in the chat box, but they'll have a lot of funding opportunities for students who are interested in this discipline, and they have a database for scholarships as well.
Perfect. Okay, another question, Kathleen. Are there application fee waivers for SIPA?
Yes, we do have application fee waivers. We do have requirements for this waiver. So depending on where you fit, you can apply for the waiver. We'll have different programs. For example, if you participated in Fulbright, there are many different ways that you can qualify for the waiver. So I will, if you go to sipa.columbia.edu and you go to the admissions tab and you'll go to the admissions FAQ tab, we have a special section for application fee waivers.
Perfect. Okay, well, we don't have more questions so far. So
Okay.
just to remind them that they can write to you at the email address that is on screen if they have any further comments or any further questions. And also reminding everyone that you can find in the chat just the information that Kathleen has sent to you, like the links. Thank you.
Thanks. I do have another question from one attendee. How deep is the data analytics and quant analysis concentration of the MPP program?
How you said, what is, I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
How deep?
Deep? I guess in terms of how difficult is it?
Probably, yeah.
It's very quant heavy. This is one of our newest additions to the curriculum. So if you have not yet already looked at the courses, you should definitely check that out. The course description will exactly have the foundations that it covers, and it is quite heavy as far as the quantitative skills that you will both need and you'll acquire after you complete it. So if you're not very strong on math, I will definitely recommend that you take a few courses before so you can prepare yourself, because people have said it's very challenging, and we want to make sure that everyone is set up for success.
Great, thank you. So we don't have any other questions right now. We just wanted to thank everyone for participating today, and thank you, Kathleen, for being here with us today. And again, please make sure to follow us in social media so you know about our future virtual activities. If you have further questions, make sure to write to Kathleen, or you can write us to our email address that you can see on screen. And you can also visit our website to learn more about the whole process if you are interested in applying to a graduate program in the US. You will be also receiving the recording of this session in case you were late or in case you want to review this information again. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you all. Thank you, Yandy. Thank you, Martha. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.